Okay, it looks like we're here. Hopefully the image isn't too dark. It's very dark outside, very wet, very, very wet. As always, I mean, we do live next to a rainforest. So I like to try to come in a minute or two early just to give a little more time for things to catch up, for people to get notifications and whatnot. But I've learned to not go on too early. I got to try to keep my shows a little shorter. I find that helps prevent the possibility of getting booted. I don't know why it wasn't a problem at first, and then all of a sudden it became a problem. So from here on out, I'll always have a backup stream ready to go, and it'll always be linked in the description box. Just keep in mind that what will happen on your end is you'll just see it freeze. But don't do anything until you see me make an announcement in the chat that, okay, I'm going over to the other stream. And keep in mind that that stream is set on private until I need it, because I don't want people seeing it and then going over there and waiting for me to start, and then I never need to use it. So anyway, hello everyone. Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And so I'm just here for the pre-show, which is the shorter version I do, maybe answering a couple of questions, showing off a couple of deals, and then letting you know about the other live show on my second channel that will be in about 2 hours and 15 minutes from the time I'm starting this one. And of course, if you're watching this in replay, depending on how much long later it is, you'll find the link to that other live in the description box as well. So you'll see the link to the reboot if I have to use it, and you'll see the link to the second live. So yeah, and then that's where I'll cover a specific topic, which today is going to be about just some ways to save money. We could all use ways to save money, right? Especially now. So one of the things I like to do on my Sunday pre-show is to show off one of my vintage books. This is a vintage, not an antique, because I think if I remember, it's either 1950 or 1952. I think I've shown this one before. Now, I found this at a garage sale for 50 cents. What a find for 50 cents. This is a cookbook. Now, I rarely use cookbooks because I just make recipes up, or I go find something and I'll look up different recipes if it's something I've never made, and then I'll take the best of each recipe and create my own. That's usually how I do it. But if I want an old recipe, I want to see how they did things at least back in the 50s and before. I like this one actually has a few color images. Those look yummy, don't they? I think they're petit fours. They look like petit fours. Yeah, they're petit fours. Yum. Love petit fours. I've made them before, but they didn't turn out. I didn't quite get the icing right. You can see how that looks. But I do. I use this when I created my basic pumpkin pie recipe. Using a combination of, they have a squash pie recipe and a pumpkin pie recipe. And so then I just created my own basic recipe and I wrote it down there. So it always stays in there. But I always recommend, this is one of the things I recommend. If you're stocking up on books, look for vintage books, especially when it comes to cookbooks. Look for vintage and antique cookbooks, because these are going to be the ones that actually have recipes that are from scratch. What's the name of this? What is the name? I can barely see it. Let's see. The American Woman's Cookbook. That's all it is. That's all it says. So anyway, yeah, because, I remember years ago, I was either gifted a couple of cookbooks or whatever. I'm looking at these cookbooks. I'm like, why is nothing from scratch in here? Everything's like a box of this and a can of that. And I'm like, that's not what I want. I want from scratch recipes, the way they were originally done, not, half your ingredients are already put together and pre-packaged and you just throw a couple things together. So my mother has that recipe book. I grew up with it. I recognize the cover pages. Cool. That's cool. So yeah, I love having this. And I have a few others too, but this is the one I am most likely to turn to. It has got a lot of great stuff in here. So, yeah, I just noticed, at least, when I was teaching myself how to cook and bake at home, when I was a kid, and my mom didn't do pie crust. She didn't do a lot of baking. I'll just put it that way, unless it came from a box. So I had to pretty much teach myself how to do this stuff. And at the time, the cookbook she had, it was a Good Housekeeping one. It was the one where you had the hole punches, and it was in like a 3-ring binder kind of thing. And that had like from scratch recipes. And I liked that. So how I learned how to make ravioli and pasta and um what else did I make? Well, pie crust and yeast breads. I learned from that book to start with. But then I ended up years later getting married, and I'm like, "Oh, I would love to have that book for myself." So I started getting the whatever the newest one was at the time. It was by the same place, and you'd get so many cards a month or something like that, and you need to categorize them. And I'm looking through this, I'm like, "This is not my mother's cookbook. This is not the same. This has got a bunch of prepackaged nonsense in here, and I don't want that." So it was really irritating. Anyway, so yeah, that's that. Now let's see. What are some videos coming out this week? That's the other thing I do is besides announcing the live for the other channel that will be in a couple hours. A couple of videos that you guys might be interested coming out this week is one on dehydrated meals. Okay, this is what the video I finally did put together. So some ideas that you can then take and create your own dehydrated meals. These are going to be things that are great for taking on the road, packing in your go bags, going camping, going hiking, and just some of the ideas that based on what I've experimented with just here at the house. And I'm talking dehydrated, not freeze dried. Okay. So this is for the sake of those people who can't afford, don't have a freeze dryer. And then the other one is about essential oils. So it's an updated video on essential oils, my thoughts, what I use, my favorite oils, brands I do and do not recommend. So that will be coming out. I think that one's publishing on Friday. And the meals one, I think, is publishing on Wednesday. And then I had a question. I had a couple. I get this question almost every time I talk about vinegar making, especially when I'm talking about all the many things you can make vinegar out of. And I'll always get a couple people that ask me if I've ever made rice vinegar or how to make it. I've never made it. I have looked it up out of curiosity because I get that question so much. But you can find instructions for making rice vinegar. There is something that's a little bit different about it because I believe, if I remember correctly, you cook the rice. You don't use raw rice. It has to be cooked first. So I would wonder if one might need to even add a starter of some kind. But it was a while ago I looked it up. I'm just not interested in making rice vinegar because I don't want to waste my rice on that when I can use scraps or garden excess, which I've always got plenty of that. I've always got more than enough of what I need to make vinegar. So, yeah, I have a lot of vinegar made up right now, and I'm kind of waiting to make more vinegar until the dandelions start blooming. And my first vinegar of the season will be from dandelion flowers, and that will be mostly for my hair, but it makes it just a great all around vinegar for food too. So I love vinegar making. It's great. Um, it's cheap. I love the fact you can just use scraps or excess or whatever. I mean, yeah. Prepackaged cake mixes are basically overpriced sugar and highly processed flour with some flavorings thrown in. We had a 24-hour blizzard here at the start of calving season, lost several babies. Oh, I am so sorry. Strange that we have had several babies who, when born, had been. I'm not sure what that is. Something for a while. Anyway, I am sorry. It may be rice wine to you, but it's sake to me. Very funny, Tyler. Good to see you, our friend. So then the other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit before I got to get off here, because this is just a short show. I usually go 15 minutes to a half an hour tops. I try not to go longer than that since I got to save my vocal cords for the other show after a bit. But so the cloth wipe video came out, and honestly, I was surprised at just the overwhelming amount of positive comments. I expected to get hate. There's people just get so mad when you talk about stuff like that. They either get really mad or really grossed out, or it's both. And I think it's really silly because if they took time to actually listen to the video, I am never trying to guilt trip people into doing something they're not quite ready for. So, my own story was I had no problem doing cloth diapers with my babies. I knew that long before I had kids that I was going to do cloth diapers because it just made sense. It just, I worked in a daycare for 2 years and I had to change diapers. And there was a couple of kids that would come in with cloth diapers, even though they weren't allowed to use them in the daycare. And so we'd have to change them into a disposable diaper when they got there. It was no big deal. And I'm like, if I can handle this and changing like 20 kids, 20 diapers a day, some of them pretty bad, um, I could handle changing cloth diapers with my own kids and dealing with them. I found it pretty simple. What I also did was I did the math on doing the cloth diapers, and I found that I saved quite a bit of money. So that's one of the main arguments people will have against doing cloth anything. It's like, well, you got to figure in the cost of the electricity, the cost of the soap, the cost of the water. Yep, I did all that. And that was back before we had solar power to run my washing machine. I did all that with cloth. And even with some of the extra stuff that I bought, like I bought these disposable liners that you could put in there that were flushable. So if they were extra messy, you didn't have to do the whole rinse thing. You just peel it off and throw it in the toilet. And what I found with those is if they only peed in the diaper, you could just wash those and reuse them again. So, that was my little way to just save a little extra work. But even with that added expense, it still was a lot cheaper going with cloth diapers. Even with the plastic pants that I kept having to replace because the ones they were making at that time weren't like the old ones they used to make. The old ones were made from nylon and they never cracked or tore. Where the ones they made when in the 90s when my kids were babies, those they would wear out and they would crack and then you'd have to get new ones. So even with the cost of having to replace those every so often, it was still cheaper going cloth. So the same would apply to the cloth wipes. People want to, the thing is, if it's not for you, never feel guilted into it. But the lame excuses are nothing but lame. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Some people have very good reasons why cloth isn't going to work for them. Sometimes it depends on their living conditions or other things, and I get that. But the excuses of, oh, it's unsanitary. You use what do you use in the shower to clean yourself? Do you use washcloths? Do you then wash them and reuse them? How many people in your family use those same washcloths? What about the rags you use to clean the floor with? Do you reuse those or do you throw them out? I mean, and cloth diapers, people have been doing those for probably thousands of years. I'm not sure what they did before that, but same thing with women's feminine napkins. Before all these paper products came into place, that's what people did. And if you're concerned about sanitary, boil them or hang them in the sun. Those are two ways that you can sanitize. I mean, the hanging in the sun would be the cheapest if you have sun. So it's not. Tyler says our son got a harsh diaper rash with disposable diapers, but not with cloth. See, cloth diapers, if they're cotton, they're going to allow the baby's skin to breathe. And the same goes for the feminine napkins. And then for the cloth wipes, it's the same thing. I saw several comments in there that people were saying when they switched to cloth, they stopped having certain other issues that was being caused by the toilet paper because of all the chemicals in toilet paper. So, to each their own. My video was never about trying to push people into doing something they're not ready for. Because even though I was trying to get to this, even though I use cloth diapers with my kids, it took me a long time to switch to cloth. In fact, the first time I heard about it was after my kids were out of diapers. And I'm like, ew, that just sounds so gross. And then one day it dawned on me. I'm like, wait a minute, why am I so freaked out about using these cloth wipes when I did cloth diapers with my kids and those are far more messy. Far more messy. And so that I was just like, okay, what am I worried about? But it was scary. Okay, it is a little scary. I understand. I understand. But if you're thinking about it, if you're thinking about it as a way to either A, save money, or B, have a backup source in case the disposable toilet paper is unavailable, which was part of the big reason why I did that video. Because we have toilet paper too. We're well stocked on that as well. But let's say there is no toilet paper for a long enough time that you end up going through all of your toilet paper, then what? Then you're going to have to look at other options like a bidet, cloth wipes, and some of the other things that people use and recommend. And that's all it's about. It's about you don't have to make the switch right away. It's about think about what's going to work best for you in the event that you don't have toilet paper and you don't want to be looking at using coffee filters, paper towels, or other such and then flushing them down the toilet. If you use those things, you're going to want to throw them out because those are not meant to be flushed. And during 2020, when people started using whatever was on hand, there were septic systems or sewer systems all over the place that were just costs the city a lot of money because of the massive clogs they had of things people were flushing down the toilet that should have never been flushed, ever. And for us, we have a septic tank. I didn't even think to bring that up in the video, but several people did that by switching to cloth, that is so much less toilet paper going in the septic tank, meaning it's a lot longer time before we have to have it pumped. Uh, Big difference. Okay. But again, no one should ever take it. I mean, some people just get angry as if I'm saying, this is what you should do. No, that's not what I'm saying. That is not what I'm saying. But if it's something that you think could be if you're just scared of it and making up excuses like oh, it's too much work, it's not sanitary, and you're not really saving money, then you haven't actually done the math on it, and you're probably just making up excuses because you don't want to do it. And I actually I can't remember if I shared this in the video because I didn't go back and watch that video recently, though I shot it like 6 weeks ago. I can't remember if that one I mentioned how I grow lamb's ear. Lamb's ear is softer than mullein, but the leaves don't get quite as big. But I've used lamb's ear. That's why I started growing it was as a backup toilet paper and toilet paper replacement and also bandage replacement. I've used it far more for bandages than anything else. But I tried it a few times for toilet paper replacement. The one thing about those is they do not flush easily because they keep wanting to float to the top. So, even though they would biodegrade well enough, they're just hard to flush. So, that'd be fine for a composting toilet. That'd be perfectly fine for a composting toilet. To use, like the lamb's ear or the mullein leaves. Like I said, lamb's ear is softer and more velvety than mullein, but mullein gets bigger leaves. So depending on how you're using it, what you're using it for. So anyway, my guess is that a lot of the people that came in and complained were not actually followers of mine because I didn't recognize any names in there. But I did get a lot of new followers though, and my channel sure needed that little boost because it did quite well. That video is funny. a video that well, anything that's a little bit controversial gets attention anyway. So yeah, I just wanted to say that for a couple of reasons that I don't want people to feel like I'm trying to guilt them into doing anything or push them into doing something that they're not ready for, because I totally do understand. But I also, for the sake of the people that just want to make excuses to not do something, they're the same exact excuses people used for many years as to why they didn't do cloth diapers. They just wanted the easier option. But the funny thing is that when people use well, you're spending so much money on soap and water and this and that, do they even consider the fact of how many garbage bags of diapers that they're having to pay to have hauled off when they're using disposables? Probably not. So anyway, okay, what are we seeing here? I'm gonna have to get going pretty soon so I can also get ready for my other show. I've already been on here. I've only been on here for 20 minutes. That's not too bad. Um, oh boy, I'm gonna have to get back to that. It's my daughter-in-law. But let me see. I wanted to see what somebody was saying here. Along the same line, I switched to cloth pad. Oh, wait, where was that? Something about commercials being so. I was curious to see what it was about. Yeah, who anyway. So, yeah. So again, this is just my pre-show show to remind everyone where to go find my other show again today. That's going to be about 5 tips on saving money. And also in that one, I will have a backup stream in the description box down below in case I get booted. And just as with this one, it will be set at private until I need it. So if I do get lost and you have to go to the backup stream, just know it may be set at private. You may have to refresh it a couple times until I have the time I get a chance to, because I have to change it to public and then I have to get it going and yeah. But I have it set up in such a way that's got the thumbnail and all that. It should make it fairly quick. But I will definitely let you know in the comment, because in the chat, because if I'm almost done with the show anyway, I probably won't start a second stream just to finish it out. It'll just depend on what else I have to say. So don't forget to go check that out. You can go to that link in the description box down below and just have that ready to go. So, and make sure you select, get notified. Not that that means that YouTube will bless you enough to give you the notification, but you can at least try. Sometimes you just never know. So anyway, yes, I hope to see you all there if you can make it. If you can't, I also totally understand. We all have busy lives and we all got a lot of stuff going on. So just if you can even pop in and say hi and give me a thumbs up on that, I'd appreciate it. And yeah, anyway, either way, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care and God bless.